Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, directed by André Øvredal, is an adaptation of the children's book series by Alvin Schwartz. The film follows a group of friends in 1968 as they venture to a nearby haunted house on Halloween. They discover a book there that begins telling them scary stories in real time. These stories involve the group of friends themselves, and they desperately try to figure out why it's happening and how to stop it before their own scary story is written. Alright, so the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books are awesome. As a kid, I read them quite a bit, even though I never was the biggest fan of the horror genre. While they scared me, I felt like they were the perfect blend of light and breezy read and compelling scary stories that make you feel something. I even went through the book again, actually, before I saw the movie, and I still love it as an adult. And here's proof, in case you were wondering. I read all three of them as kids, and I love them still today. They're a great read now. And also, just a note too, I think the illustrations are really spooky, and the stories are just a hell of a lot of fun. That's the best way I can describe it. But as for the film, I didn't go into the theater expecting much. I think I had seen one trailer a while back, but I didn't expect the movie to actually be good, to be honest. I just hoped that it would be enjoyable and pay homage to the greatness of the books, in my opinion. Thankfully, it does both. The movie's well made and it pays homage to the books quite well. Some of it looking like it walked literally straight off the page and onto the screen. I think this is definitely up there near the top of the list for pleasant surprises of 2019. I'm not sure it will end up in most people's top 10 overall films of the year or anything, but I do feel like most people will enjoy it, provided you're okay with a few things. I think the biggest thing you need to be okay with is that this is a PG-13 horror film. It's not filled with blood and guts and gore. It's more reliant on things that are scary through how creepy they look or how slowly they close in on you, or one of the main characters rather. But you're not going to see a lot of things you'd see in like a normal R-rated horror film, like The Ring or Annabelle or something along those lines. Scary Stories really does push the limits of what a PG-13 film can do, but it's scary in a different type of way than what you may go in expecting. And that's actually one of my pros. I don't think the film is terrifying or anything, but I certainly felt how suspenseful several of the scenes were. I want to give credit to the director for really making it feel like the walls are slowly closing in on the characters, and their impending doom is lurking just around the corner. There's a slow, steady build-up almost every time something scary is about to happen, and instead of just hitting you with a possession or something you've seen a million times before, this film really lets the tension marinate so it feels palpable. It's scary in the same way that I felt It from 2017 was scary. Not overly bloody or gory, but very eerie, and I like that. Speaking of It, I feel like this film was a combination of It, Final Destination, and a PG-13 rating. If I had to summarize the film to someone who is thinking about going to see it, that's how I'd describe it. I think it does what a lot of horror films don't. It makes you actually give a shit about the characters. It does that by providing a narrative that actually makes sense within the context of the story, and allows the characters to actually show some personality with traits that help them carve a place for themselves within that story. I think that Scary Stories is first and foremost a horror film, but it's actually well balanced and offers an experience that doesn't feel so one note. The characters work in the same way they work in It. They have personality, they actually bring something of value to the story, besides just a punching bag of sorts for the scares. What I'll also say is that there's a deliberate attempt to make this film lighthearted, and it works. A few of the characters will fairly consistently do and say funny things, and it helps make the film fun. I mean, this again ties back to the idea that a film like this can be well-rounded and can be fun, and not have to be, very serious and dark and scary all the time. There's room for both of these types of movies in the horror genre, of course, but it's nice to see a horror film not always take itself so seriously. As long as you're able to keep the levels properly aligned, you can offer an experience that can be a little more dynamic. I also think that each of the performers do a nice job bringing life and personality to their characters. I think that occasionally some of them feel a bit stiff, but overall I think they do a nice job. Zoe Margaret Colletti plays Stella, the lead of the film, and I think she actually makes the most of her screen time by delivering a character that's very easy to root for. They give her a bit of a backstory, and I think it adds enough depth to her character to work on the level she needs to for this specific film. Now, some of the characters will need more development as they likely do more films, but it works for this one just fine. Something I think people will want to know is, do you have to read the books to understand the movie? The answer to that is a resounding no. I mean, the books are a collection of scary stories, and the movie just weaves some of those stories into a brand new plot that focuses on the characters that never existed in the book. So these characters are all brand new to the film and don't exist in the book, so there's no crossover in that sense. I do want to give credit where credit is due, though, because the way these stories come to life in the film is awesome. Each time a new story is being written, I felt nostalgic because I know each of them. I could pretty much envision what was about to happen because I know the crux of the story and what each story was actually about. So obviously if you read the books, that's a plus because you'll feel that nostalgia like I did, but it's not required. That said, the adaptation is extremely faithful. As I mentioned, some of the stories feel like they literally walked off the page and onto the screen, which I loved. You can tell that this adaptation comes from a love for the books, which is exactly what I was hoping for going in. My only other criticism of the film is that you could definitely pick holes in the logic of it. While it's nice for films like this to be enjoyable and for entertainment, there is a decent amount of, that you have to suspend your disbelief to make it all make sense in your head. I think it mostly has to do with the way the stories come to life and how the story already knows what will happen before it does. The problem with that is that it raises more questions than it answers. Does the book know the future? What happens if the character does something different than what's written? How does the book even know these things? I'm fine with it as fun, entertaining, as an experience. But if you want to be nitpicky, the film, just expects you to accept certain things that may not work for everyone. Still, I had a great time with the movie overall, and I was very impressed with what the filmmakers were able to accomplish with it. For the pros, cons, for the pros, I think Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is funny and well-rounded. It offers quality scares for a PG-13 film. The characters are interesting enough to help carry the story, and the adaptation is extremely faithful to the books. As for the cons, the performances can at times feel a bit flat, and there are logic holes you could pick out if you wanted to. I'm still going to give Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark a 9 out of 10, and highly recommend you check it out in theaters. I think that if you're looking for a horror experience that's a bit more tame and offers something more well-rounded, then this is a good option for you. If you've read the books, that's a plus too. So did you guys see Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know if you've read the books. If you haven't, you should, honestly. Like I said, they're light reading and they're enjoyable, and also there's some good scares and it's also well illustrated. So it really is worth your time, and they're pretty cheap on Amazon or anywhere else, Barnes & Noble or whatever. But they're great and I do recommend them. Either way, this is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next video.